Recent decisions from the U.S. Supreme Court have triggered protests and profound social changes south of the border. Today, the court is making history again, but not with its decisions. This time, it's about the justices themselves. Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson has become the first Black woman to join the U.S. Supreme Court.
That I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Jackson was sworn in during a ceremony at the court in Washington. She was confirmed by the Senate back in April, but she couldn't be sworn in until Justice Stephen Breyer's retirement became official today. The court will hold a more formal investiture for Jackson in the fall. She starts work immediately. So today brings a momentous and meaningful first for the court, but it's not one that will change its ideological balance. The CBC's Chris Glover has been watching and joins us now live from Washington. So, Chris, remind us of who Ketanji Brown Jackson is and how she got there.
Quite a milestone day in D.C., Arthi, isn't it? Not just the first Black woman on the Supreme Court, but also the first former public defender. And now, for the first time ever, there are 4 women on the U.S. Supreme Court. And we heard the oaths being recited there by Ketanji Brown Jackson, but she didn't get a chance to say much else. And that's too bad, really, because she received quite a lot of praise for a stirring speech that she made back in April when she was officially confirmed by all 50 U.S. Senate Democrats and 3 Republicans. And one of the things that she said back then that really stuck out to me was noting the fact that in her family, it took just 1 generation to go from segregation in the United States to the Supreme Court of the United States. Just an inspiring story of progress and perseverance. And you saw how much she was smiling in the ceremony this afternoon when she was reading out an oath with outgoing Justice Stephen Breyer, who she will now be replacing. They certainly have a special connection. She served as his law clerk from 1999 to 2000 and has considered him a mentor. She said it was extremely humbling to be taking over his seat, and she said she'd learned from him the importance of consensus building. Arthi?
And, you know, I mentioned, Chris, that the balance on the court, there are clear divisions when it comes to recent decisions. So what are the expectations when it comes to Justice Jackson?
Well, it will not shift that balance of power, that's for sure. Justice Jackson will join 2 other liberal justices on the court, 2 Obama appointees, Justices Kagan and Sotomayor, and that makes 3 liberal justices up against 6 conservative justices. Now, Justice Jackson was President Biden's first nominee to the Supreme Court, and that appointment was made possible by Justice Breyer retiring earlier than he had to. Now, in recent years, the 83-year-old justice had faced a lot of pressure to retire early so that President Biden could have a chance to name a younger successor. And Biden had said back on the 2020 campaign trail that he was committed to name the first Black woman to the court. And he wasn't at today's historic swearing-in ceremony. He's, of course, at the NATO summit in Madrid. But back in February, when he officially nominated Jackson at the White House, Biden said, "I believe that it is time we have a court that reflects the full talents and greatness of our nation." So while we'll be watching to see what role she plays on the bench, her addition will not change that conservative 6-3 mega majority that we know has resulted in landmark decisions recently, including, of course, overturning Roe v. Wade. Arthi?
Thanks for this, Chris. That is the CBC's Chris Glover in Washington. And there were a few other developments from the U.S. Supreme Court today, so Chris will join us in a few minutes to talk about that. Well, Jackson's swearing in has special meaning for one cohort, Black female law students. We have 2 of them with us now in Atlanta, Jalen Wells, and in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Nadia Foster. Both attended Southern University's Law Center in Louisiana. Welcome to you both. Thank you for being with us.
Hi, thank you.
So, Jalen, I'll start with you first. Can you just tell me how you were feeling watching that swearing-in ceremony?
I felt very similar to how I felt being in D.C. during the confirmation hearing. Southern University had a few law students who were able to go to the confirmation hearing, and I felt overwhelmed. I felt proud. I felt excited, especially with everything that's kind of been going on in the news recently. This felt like a beacon of hope and excitement for people who look like me.
And Nadia, same question for you. How were you feeling as you watched this historic moment today?
I have to echo a lot of sentiments of Miss Wells. Uh, there are so many words in the English language, and it's really hard to choose a couple, but overwhelmed, overjoyed, proud, just warm, really just inspired, you know? Like, she's just amazing. And to actually be able to see that in my lifetime, that's going to be a norm for my kids. You know, that wasn't a norm for me to see her on this bench. So, you know, there's just so many words that I could sum it up, but just really excited.
You know, and this is an interesting time for the Supreme Court, too. So what does it mean, not just to see that sort of representation in terms of the identity of a Black woman being on the top court, but also ideologically? Maybe I'll start with you, Jalen.
I think that it will maybe open up the door for law students or anyone who's pre-law that has an interest and has a hunger to want to learn more, who want to, you know, be a part of the legal field, and even open up the door to having more Black women, Black men clerking at the Supreme Court. That would be something that I would love to see, but especially I think allowing us to see that we don't have to only be lawyers or only be professors or whatever it is that we've been seeing, but we can now be Supreme Court justices. And I think it just opens the floodgates for the different opportunities that are now ahead of us and are open to us.
You know, Nadia, it's an interesting time to think about progress in the United States, because certainly a lot of people are talking about the recent Supreme Court decision involving abortion for women in that country. But we also heard, and we were listening to the reporter ahead of time saying, you know, Ketanji Brown Jackson has said within her lifetime of her family, in one generation, it went from segregation to her being on the U.S. top court. What does that say for progress in the United States?
Wow. I think what it says for progress is that even though there may be a lot of setbacks, there's always that one thing that shows you that the charge is moving forward. The reason why I really identify with this is because, like, my parents are Jamaican. So in one generation, all of my family was in Jamaica, and now most of them are here. I'm the first one to go to school, right? So it just takes really one action. There are a lot of things going on, a lot of decisions that are controversial, but just being able to see her be sworn in and now she's on the bench, I think that shows that there is still some progress being made and that our country may be in the right direction eventually.
Jalen, for you, and we heard Nadia talk a little bit there about her family too, wondering for you, for your friends, for your family, for members of the community, how was it when the news first came of the confirmation and then today for the swearing in? How are people marking it?
I think especially going to a historically Black law school, it's not a small feat. This is something that speaks volumes of Black legal minds and scholars. I think we are seeing, as I mentioned, we're seeing ourselves in different spaces. We're seeing ourselves with so many opportunities and so many people backing us. This is not just historic within the confines of American history, but it's a major step and something for the entire Black community to be proud of. And so I think my friends and family have been texting each other, sharing it all over social media. So we're excited, and I think it's ramping us up for more.
You know, we talked a little bit about how this personally has impacted both of you, watching again both the confirmation and the swearing in as well. I did want to ask you, Nadia, let's say, for example, you happen to be clerking for Justice Jackson. What would an experience like that mean to you?
Wow, it's so big conceptually. Honestly, I'd probably die for that position. What would that mean to me? Everything. Clerking is already an invaluable experience. And then clerking for a Supreme Court justice, it's literally once in a lifetime. That option is so narrow for a lot of us in the legal field. So to be able to do that for her, I mean, it's just so invaluable. I don't even think you could measure it. That experience would literally be a lifetime achievement, quite literally, and an honor, to be honest, to serve her and the nation.
And you know, this final question I'll have for both Nadia and Jaylin. Jaylin, we'll start with you. You know, there's a lot of conversation. Often it happens around elections. Sometimes it happens around confirmations or swearing in ceremonies like this, of what the people are ready for, what they are ready to accept, what the population is ready to accept, whether it's in the United States or globally. Does this confirmation and swearing in, you also see Vice President Kamala Harris in the position that she's in. Does this mean that within your country, within the world, there is actually greater acceptance of what people are willing to see or who people are willing to see in power?
I think it does. I think that our population is rapidly changing. I think that marginalized groups are starting to be acknowledged more. We're making noise. Although it's a process and it's a struggle, I think that more people are standing up. And I think that because we're being so vocal and we're having the opportunity to be vocal and to do so much work, people are now acknowledging that. And I think it's just showing who we have as leaders, who we have on the front lines. And so me personally, I think it's just, it looks like it's following how the rest of society is going. We're progressing, and it only makes sense that our government officials progress in the same way.
And Nadia, a similar final question to you too. In terms of, let's say, the next decade, what do you think, what do you see changes happening in terms of who we see in power?
I think there's a lot of optimism in that question. Of course, Jaylin and I, Ms. Wells and I, attend one of these 6 historically Black law schools. There has been an increase in enrollment for students going to law school, students attending HBCUs. I feel like with apps like TikTok and Twitter and just younger people being able to join the conversation, accessibility is key. I think that there is a lot of hope in the next 10 years for leadership to change, because so many people are getting involved at a grassroots level. Information is being spread widely. Representation is now everywhere. You can Google people, there's TikToks, there's just so many different things that make something obtainable. I think my final thoughts on that is you usually can't be what you can't see. And many people have to dare to have an imagination to place themselves into areas that, you know, normally weren't for them. But glass ceilings are being broken. So in 10 years, I'm hopeful. Leadership is going to look like us, like America, diverse.
Jaylin, Nadia, I really enjoyed this conversation with you both. Thank you so much for sharing some time with us.
Thank you.
Jaylin Wells and Nadia Foster are both students at a law school in Southern University, law students in Louisiana.